Day 22. For 21 days, you have followed a fixed sequence. Somatic filter, touch log, draw the map, freeze it, geometry sentence, cluster, isolate, void, in that order. Always, without exception, whether you felt like it or not. Hi, I'm Dr. Rivka Edery, and welcome back to this video series on spatial sight. So, something has happened to that sequence which you may not have noticed. You have stopped following it. Not because you abandoned it, because it has stopped being a thing you follow. Somewhere in the last week or two, checking the void stopped being a step you remembered to do and became simply where your eye goes. The sequence has dissolved into the way you look. That is what the phase heading in your book means. The method becomes the lens. Now, this is the most dangerous session in the entire course. And I want to say that plainly at the top, because the obvious next move is to tell you that you have graduated, that you may now trust your instincts, work intuitively, let the method go. And that would destroy you. And it would do it slowly, and you would enjoy every minute of the process. So today is not about permission to improvise. Today is about a distinction. Some of this you may now put down. Some of it you may never put down. And most practitioners cannot tell the difference, which is precisely why most practitioners quietly become worse over time while feeling they are getting better. Let me show you what has already happened. And I want you to check it against yourself rather than take my word for it. Day 3. You had to remember to measure the gap. You had to decide to look at the empty space because your eye would not take you there. Every step was a deliberate act performed against resistance using working memory. Day 22. You look at a table and the geometry arrives. The cluster registers before you have named it. The void is simply there, not as a step you completed, but as a feature of the scene. You did not decide to see any of that. This is what day 18 was actually about, though I did not tell you at the time. The plateau, the flat, unremarkable week where nothing seemed to improve, was the sound of the sequence being absorbed. It stopped requiring effort, and because it stopped requiring effort, it stopped producing any sensation, and you concluded nothing was happening. Something enormous was happening. The checklist was becoming perception. And here is the terminal goal of this whole course, which I gave you on day 10, and which you can now feel arriving. By day 30, you see the field before you read the cards. Not you interpret it faster. You see it. The geometry lands on you before the interpreting mind gets there. That is not a talent, and it never was. It is what a fixed sequence does to a nervous system after 300 repetitions. You built it by refusing, night after night, to do the thing that felt more natural. The checklist has become the lens. That much is genuinely true, and you have earned it. Now let me tell you what it does not license. Go back to the method map at the front of the book. You have not looked at it in 3 weeks. Read the caption. Read from the root upward. Everything above the root exists to serve it. Return to this page whenever the method feels larger than it is. The root is fixed. It is what makes this practice spatial sight. The mechanisms on the branches serve the root and may be refined as the method matures. The root may not. There it is. The spatial sight method book licensed today's session on page 1, and it put a fence around it in the same sentence. The mechanisms on the branches may be refined as the method matures. The root may not. So dropping the checklist is permitted. It is anticipated, but only on the branches. And that means today's real work is an inventory. You need to know with total precision which parts of what you do are branches and which part is the root. Because here is the failure that is waiting for you, and it will not feel like a failure. Over the next few weeks and months, you will gradually put things down. Some of them because they have become automatic and no longer need to be consciously held. And some of them because they are inconvenient or slow or produce results you would rather not have. And both of those will feel identical from the inside. Both will feel like maturing. Well, one of them is maturing, the other is decay, and the person it is happening to is always the last to know. So let us be precise about what is what. Here is what you may put down. These were scaffolding. They have done their work, and continuing to hold them consciously now costs you something without buying you anything. The conscious sequence. You no longer need to recite it. Cluster, then isolate, then void. Your eye does it. Let it. Consciously narrating a process that has become automatic actually degrades it. It is like thinking about your feet on a staircase. The prompts. You do not need the workbook's questions to remind you what to look for. Is there an isolated card? What is the quality of the isolation? You ask that now without being asked to. The explicit naming. You may see a satellite without saying the word satellite. Recognition is enough. The vocabulary was a tool for building the perception. It is not required for using it. And the deliberate slowness. Day 3 took you 40 minutes because it had to, because every step was a separate act of will. It does not have to now. If a session takes you 12 minutes and everything is properly recorded, that is not carelessness, that is competence. Notice what all 4 of those have in common. Every one of them is about conscious effort, about holding something in working memory that no longer needs to be held there. That is what you're putting down, the effort, not the operation. The operation still happens. It has simply stopped needing you to supervise it. And here's what you may never put down. Not at 30 days, not at 30 years. These are not scaffolding. These are an instrument, and an instrument without them is not a faster instrument. It is not an instrument. The map freeze. The map is drawn before the flip, and it does not change after it, ever. Not when you are experienced, not when you are certain, not when the correction is obviously right. The disconfirmation line. You name what would prove you wrong because you know how it lands. Every session, including the ones where you are sure. The pen. It is part of the instrument, written during the session, or it is not evidence. And no amount of experience will ever make your memory admissible. And at the root, geometry before meaning. The eye moves outward before it moves inward, always. That is what makes this practice spatial sight rather than something else with a similar name. Now, look at those 4 and notice what they have in common, because it is the whole lesson. Not one of them is a skill. Every single one is a constraint. They do not make you better at reading. They make it harder for you to fool yourself. They are the places where the method takes the pen out of your hand at exactly the moment you would most like to be holding it. And that is why they can never be dropped, because the thing they protect against does not go away with experience. Your skill improved. Your capacity for self-deception did not decline. It is exactly as strong today as it was on day one, and it is now equipped with far better vocabulary and much more confidence. That is not a joke. An experienced practitioner who has dropped the constraints is more dangerous than a novice who never had them, because his or her errors are more articulate.